Predicting the collapse of a state is complex and messy, but there are some very real warning signs flashing across this country. We're talking about states grappling with crippling debt, crumbling infrastructure, and a host of social issues. So buckle up, dear viewers, as we explore 10 U.S. states facing some seriously choppy waters, states that could be teetering on the brink by 2025. First up, Illinois. Known for its sprawling cornfields and even more sprawling budget deficits, Illinois has been flirting with financial disaster for years, racking up a level of debt that would make even a Wall Street banker blush. According to the Pew Charitable Trust's Fiscal 50 report, Illinois is drowning in a sea of red ink, largely thanks to its massive unfunded pension liabilities. We're talking about a ticking time bomb here, one that threatens to blow a hole in the state's budget and leave essential services hanging by a thread. Imagine your friendly neighborhood fire department having to hold a bake sale just to afford a new fire hose. This financial instability has real-world consequences, cuts to education, crumbling infrastructure, and a general sense that the state is just barely keeping its head above water. Now I know what you're thinking. This all sounds terribly depressing. Surely there's a silver lining somewhere. There is hope, but it hinges on serious structural reforms and tough decisions by its elected officials. Whether those decisions will be made in time to avert disaster, well, that's a whole other story. Next, we travel west to California, a land of sun-kissed beaches, Hollywood glamour, and a whole lot of problems. California is grappling with a trifecta of challenges: a homelessness crisis, housing costs that would make even a tech millionaire wince, and the ever-present threat of wildfires. According to the U.S. News and World Report, California has the highest rate of homelessness in the nation, with an estimated 160,000 people living on the streets on any given night. Finding an affordable place to live in California is about as likely as spotting a unicorn riding a surfboard down the Pacific Coast Highway. Add to that the ever-present threat of wildfires, fueled by climate change and years of drought, and you've got a recipe for disaster. California is nothing if not resilient, but the challenges facing the Golden State are significant and not going away anytime soon. This is a state that has weathered its fair share of storms, both literal and figurative. From the West Coast, we journey back east to the Garden State, a land of Bruce Springsteen diners that never close and some pretty significant financial woes. New Jersey is grappling with a mountain of debt, much of it stemming from unfunded pension liabilities. According to the Pew Charitable Trust's Fiscal 50 report, New Jersey has one of the worst funded pension systems in the nation, a problem that has been brewing for decades. When a state promises its employees retirement benefits and then doesn't set aside enough money to pay for them, it creates a massive financial hole. This means less money for schools, roads, and all the essential services that make a state, well, a state. And it's a problem that's only going to get worse as more baby boomers retire. New Jersey isn't alone in facing this pension crisis, but that doesn't make it any less urgent. The state needs to address this issue head-on to avoid further financial instability. Our next stop takes us to Kentucky, a land known for its rolling hills, world-famous bourbon, and its place at the epicenter of the opioid epidemic. Kentucky consistently ranks near the bottom in terms of overall well-being, reflecting the economic and social challenges facing many of its residents. The opioid epidemic has hit Kentucky particularly hard, with overdose deaths soaring in recent years. Data from the CDC shows Kentucky having one of the highest rates of drug overdose deaths in the nation. This crisis is not just a matter of personal tragedy, it's also an economic drain, costing the state billions in lost productivity, healthcare costs, and law enforcement expenses. The decline of the coal industry, once a bedrock of the state's economy, has left many communities struggling to cope with job losses and dwindling opportunities. Kentucky is a state with a rich history and a proud people, but it's also at a crossroads, facing challenges that will require innovative solutions. Investing in its people and future is crucial for Kentucky to overcome these hurdles. We continue our journey south to Mississippi, the Magnolia State, a place of deep history, soulful music, and some of the most entrenched poverty in the nation. Mississippi consistently ranks at or near the bottom in key indicators of well-being, from education to healthcare to economic opportunity. According to U.S. News and World Report, Mississippi has the highest poverty rate in the country, with nearly 1 in 5 residents living below the poverty line. This cycle of poverty impacts everything from educational attainment to health outcomes. Mississippi has one of the lowest high school graduation rates in the country, and its residents have some of the poorest health outcomes, with high rates of chronic diseases like diabetes and heart disease. Data from the CDC shows a stark disparity in life expectancy, with Mississippians living, on average, several years less than residents of other states. Mississippi is a state of contrasts, where stunning natural beauty coexists alongside deep poverty. Our journey takes us next to West Virginia, a state known for its rugged beauty, independent spirit, and struggles with economic decline and the opioid epidemic. West Virginia has been hit hard by the decline of the coal industry, which once provided thousands of well-paying jobs. Gallup's state and city well-being rankings consistently place West Virginia near the bottom, reflecting the economic and social challenges faced by many of its residents. The state has struggled to diversify its economy, and many young people have left in search of better opportunities elsewhere. The opioid epidemic has also ravaged West Virginia, with the state having the highest rate of drug overdose deaths in the nation, according to CDC data. This crisis has had a devastating impact on families and communities, straining the state's already limited resources. But amidst these challenges, there are efforts underway to revitalize the state's economy and address the opioid crisis. We head south to Alabama, the heart of Dixie, a state steeped in history and known for its southern hospitality. But behind the charming facade, Alabama is grappling with a confluence of challenges, from financial instability to a healthcare system in crisis. According to the Pew Charitable Trust's Fiscal 50 report, Alabama ranks among the worst states in terms of fiscal health. The state faces a future of tough choices as it grapples with how to fund essential services with limited resources. Alabama has some of the worst health outcomes in the nation, with high rates of chronic diseases and a shortage of healthcare providers, particularly in rural areas. CDC data paints a stark picture, with Alabama ranking near the bottom in terms of life expectancy and overall health. The state's decision not to expand Medicaid under the Affordable Care Act has left hundreds of thousands of residents without access to affordable health care, exacerbating an already dire situation. Our journey takes us next to Louisiana, the Bayou State, a land of vibrant culture, musical traditions, and a history of natural disasters and financial mismanagement. Louisiana, according to the Pew Charitable Trust's Fiscal 50 report, is facing a precarious financial situation, with a legacy of budget deficits and a heavy reliance on volatile oil and gas revenues. This financial instability leaves the state vulnerable to economic shocks and limits its ability to invest in essential services. From hurricanes to floods to coastal erosion, Louisiana is on the front lines of climate change, and the costs of these disasters are mounting. Data from NOAA shows that Louisiana has been hit by more billion-dollar disasters than any other state over the past 4 decades. We venture to Oklahoma, the Sooner State, a land of wide-open spaces, oil wells, and significant challenges in health and economic opportunity. Oklahoma consistently ranks near the bottom in terms of healthcare, with high rates of uninsured residents and a shortage of healthcare providers, particularly in rural areas. This lack of access to quality healthcare impacts everything from life expectancy to overall well-being. On the economic front, Oklahoma has struggled to diversify its economy beyond its reliance on the energy sector. CDC data reveals alarming health statistics for Oklahoma, with high rates of obesity, diabetes, and heart disease. Our final stop takes us to Connecticut, the Constitution State, a place known for its charming towns, affluent suburbs, and precarious financial situation. Connecticut, despite its wealth, is facing a perfect storm of fiscal challenges, from a shrinking tax base to ballooning pension obligations. The Pew Charitable Trust's Fiscal 50 report paints a worrying picture, with Connecticut ranking among the worst states in terms of fiscal health. One of the biggest drags on Connecticut's finances is its massive unfunded pension liability, a problem that has been decades in the making. This massive debt threatens to crowd out other essential spending priorities, from education to infrastructure to social services. So there you have it, folks, 10 U.S. states facing some seriously strong headwinds. These states have the power to chart a different course, to address their challenges head-on and build a more resilient and sustainable future. What do you think, dear viewers? Are these states truly on the brink, or do they have what it takes to turn things around? Let us know in the comments below.